What's good? It's Woog. First of all, rest in peace to Sly Stone, one of music's greatest and most innovative, the frontman and mastermind behind Sly and the Family Stone. We've got a fight on Saturday. This fight's taking place in, or rather at, Madison Square Garden, New York City. And the fight is between Richardson Hitchins, 19 wins and 0 losses, who will be defending his IBF 140-pound title against George Kambosos Jr., 22 wins and 3 losses. George Kambosos Jr. is a former unified champ. Some say undisputed, some say unified. It all depends on how you look at the WBC belt at that time. But George Kambosos famously upset Teofimo Lopez after having pretty close but quality back-to-back wins against Mickey Bey and Lee Selby. George Kambosos was supposed to just be another opponent for Teofimo Lopez, and he ended up just spoiling everything, dropping Teo in the first round in a fight where Teofimo Lopez looked like he had little to no strategy and poor instructions from his father/trainer between rounds. But the fight ended up getting really competitive. He ended up dropping Kambosos in the second half of the fight, but Kambosos ended the fight really strong and pulled out a split decision shocker of a win over the then red hot Teofimo Lopez. But ever since that, it's pretty much been downhill for George Kambosos. He got dominated. I mean dominated twice in his hometown against Devin Haney to lose the titles, and then Devin Haney retained the titles, beating Kambosos as convincingly in the second of those 2 fights. And then after that, he got a questionable decision win, majority decision win. I thought Maxie Hughes deserved the close win, but they gave it to George Kambosos. That was in Oklahoma, kind of a comeback fight for Kambosos. But again, watching that fight, I'm like, damn, Kambosos getting hit with some clean left hands. He's not looking good, but he ended up making it more competitive in the second half of the fight, and they gave him the decision. There was also a bad head clash in that fight that totally affected Maxie Hughes. But again, I thought he deserved the decision win. They gave it to George Kambosos, and then Kambosos fought Vasily Lomachenko, another huge opportunity. That's one thing of note with George Kambosos. Ever since he beat Teofimo Lopez, he has had one big opportunity after another. So he has another shot for the title against Lomachenko. That was for the vacant WBO title. Lomachenko becomes the first to stop Kambosos. He won just about every round, and unlike Devin Haney and most believe Richardson Hitchins, Vasily Lomachenko was really coming at Kambosos and just looking for every opportunity to land power shots. I mean, this was one of those fights that looked so lopsided, skill and talent wise, that I'm trying to think of another fight that looked like this, where there's a fighter, the better fighter, has a clear move that they keep on going to and keep on finding success. Like you could say Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney, but no, it was a few times, like 4 to 6 times where Ryan Garcia caught Haney cleanly, but every time he caught him cleanly with that left hook, he hurt him. I'm talking about where a fighter moment after moment keeps on going to that same move and it keeps on working. When Regis Prograis fought Ivan Redkach on a Jake Paul undercard, can't remember which Jake Paul fight, might have been one of the 2 Tyron Woodley fights, but Regis Prograis kept on feinting and then throwing a left hand, feinting and then throwing a left hand, and he kept on having success against Ivan Redkach in the fight. That's the one where Redkach hit the canvas, acted like, I forgot if he acted like he got hit low or something, but he ended up just essentially saying no mas, and that was the end of the fight. With Lomachenko versus Kambosos, Lomachenko kept on feinting Kambosos out of position and then throwing it straight as Kambosos would dip down, and it worked like 20 times it seemed, and he ended up stopping Kambosos in the 11th round. And then Kambosos has a comeback fight against Jack Wiley, a much lesser tier fighter. Like, this is the only no-name fighter that Kambosos has fought since before he even fought Mickey Bey. You would have to go back to like 2019 when he fought like Richard Pena. So in Kambosos's defense, he's fought quality fighters for the past, 5 years or so. And he beat Jack Wiley, but in the second half of that fight, I didn't think Kambosos looked that good. I thought Wiley started to, I wouldn't say he mounted a significant comeback, but he definitely made it more competitive in the second half of the fight. There was a nasty head clash in that one as well. But Kambosos, I think most people kind of view as a Buster Douglas-like figure, where he's got this super outrageously outsized win, upset win, but then you see him in other high profile fights against A-level competition, and that is more reflective of who Kambosos is as a boxer than what he showed in that one fight against Teofimo Lopez. I think most people think he is who we thought he was, and that was the guy who lost badly twice to Devin Haney and got stopped by Vasily Lomachenko. And this is no real knock to Kambosos. I mean, he, if anything, has really maximized on that win to where, again, he's been getting opportunity after opportunity, these high profile fights. And a lot of these fights are in his hometown in Australia because he's built a big fan base over there. So it's good business. And now he's having another title shot for Richardson Hitchins' IBF 140-pound title. So this will be Kambosos' second fight up from 135 at 140. And he's fighting a Richardson Hitchins who's coming off of his career best win in it was a split decision on paper, but that was bogus. That scorecard that made it a split decision was terrible. He handedly beat a surging Liam Paro in Puerto Rico after Paro beat Subriel Matias in Puerto Rico. In fact, Paro's last two wins at that point were pretty impressive. He knocked out Montana Love, stopped him, and then he handedly beat Subriel Matias. Upset victory. A lot of people were calling Matias the boogeyman, and Matias has a pretty good and competitive matchup coming up. So I'd be curious to see if Subriel Matias has success going forward. But yeah, Liam Paro was no joke. A lot of people thought that he had a good chance at beating Hitchins in that fight, and Hitchins had other plans. Again, he should have won a unanimous decision against Liam Paro, and that was coming after a difficult fight where Gustavo Lemos gave Hitchins just about everything he could handle. He hurt Hitchins in that fight. It was that Gustavo Lemos performance over Hitchins that had people thinking that Lemos was going to be very dangerous against Keyshawn Davis, and a Keyshawn Davis conversation is a whole other conversation right now as it stands. But Lemos, who got stopped by Keyshawn Davis in the second round just before that, had really pushed Richardson Hitchins to the brink where I thought that it was going to be competitive going into the scorecards. Again, he had Hitchins in distress in several different moments of that fight. And just before that, Hitchins dominated Jose Zepeda. Jose Zepeda looked like he was so short and so short-armed that he looked like he had to swim across a moat to even get to Richardson Hitchins, who is a master at distance control, range control. And I think a lot of people think that Hitchins versus Zepeda fight might be what we can expect out of Hitchins versus George Kambosos. So I feel like this fight, just on the surface, it seems so easy to call, given where they are in their careers, given what we've seen against Kambosos when he fights other elite fighters, aside from that Teofimo Lopez fight. I feel like it's almost too easy to call. Like, it's Hitchins, like 10 rounds to 2, right? 9 rounds to 3, something like that. A dominant decision win for Richardson Hitchins. I feel like most people are more or less in alignment with that. I think that if I put a poll out there, the vast majority of people would be saying, yeah, Hitchins via decision. Something very, almost non-competitive. And I mean, I think the betting odds pretty much reflect that. I haven't seen like what the prop odds, like, you know, knockout versus decision are, but just in terms of who is likely to win the fight, according to the betting lines, Richardson Hitchins is a -1,000. He's a 10-1 favorite against George Kambosos, who is right now going off at a +1100 and 11-1 underdog. So that's what the betting public thinks of George Kambosos at this point. So look, because it seems so easy to call, with Richardson Hitchins being long-limbed, 74-inch reach, that's like the Terrence Crawford reach, and being able to just jab people into oblivion and kind of manage the range and all that. And sometimes he'll throw a nice right hand behind the jab, but he can usually control the fight at range. And he is somewhat, I think, an underrated inside fighter. He's showing some skills there. I feel like it's too obvious for this to actually play out the way that it's supposed to. I think that it's going to be more competitive than it should be, because it should be Hitchins winning 10 rounds to 2, 9 rounds to 3. but I think it's going to be more like a 8-4 type of fight. You might even have a scorecard that goes 7-5. I think Kambosos is going to go for broke here. I don't think he's just going to stand on the outside getting picked apart. And by the way, this is in Hitchins' hometown. This is in New York City. I mean, he's a Brooklynite. Biggie from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. That's why I'm rocking the shirt. But when Kambosos is at his best, he's able to properly time when he throws that right hand. Like, he's kind of, you know, they call it herky-jerky. He kind of does a little bit of that. He doesn't have a very good jab. It's a sometimes good jab, depending on who he's fighting. When he's fighting higher opposition, you see him struggle to land the jab consistently. But when he's at his best, he's able to jump in, throw a nice right hand, follow it up with a nice left hook, and he's pretty quick. He's not a slow-handed fighter. It's just that footwork wise, it seems that when people are more skillful and more rangy than him, then he has trouble getting on the inside. Teofimo Lopez doesn't have a reach like Devin Haney, like Richardson Hitchins. But I'm thinking that Kambosos, he's got to figure out something that works, whether it's him feinting his way into position or letting Hitchins throw one jab, try to slip that and then come inside. I think that he's gonna have a competitive first half of the fight. I do think Hitchins is going to go to the body effectively as well as jab Kambosos consistently. And I think that he's going to start pulling away a little bit more in the second half of the fight. But again, I think Kambosos will be competitive. And look, it's not like Kambosos is an old fighter. He seems like an old fighter because we've seen him get dominated a few times now. But biological age-wise, he's only 31 years old. And he's a pretty good athlete. It's just that he doesn't have a lot of the sweet science technical ability. He's somebody who's kind of like an athletic fighter where if you're better than the other opponent or at least equal ability wise, then you could have success. That's why he was able to have a good second half of the fight against Maxie Hughes. Not so much again against Devin Haney and Lomachenko. But I do think he's gonna be able to bank like maybe 3 of the 6 rounds and then maybe steal one in the back half of the fight, to where Hitchins, again, pulls away on the scorecard, but it's not like a complete blowout. It's something that Kambosos doesn't have to feel embarrassed about. I think Hitchins is going to win this one something like 8-4. I think that will be more reflective of the fight we see. Because, you know, if you were going to put a over-under on how many rounds Kambosos is going to win, I think that number would be 3, like over or under 3 rounds for Kambosos. And I'm going to go 1 over that. I think he's going to win about 4 rounds. And I'm not talking, again, the scorecards might have 2 judges giving, you know, Hitchins 8-4, 7-5, and then 1 judge has it 6-6. You might get something crazy like that. But I think most people who watch the fight are going to feel that they watched an 8-4 type of fight. So yeah, I'm going to go with Hitchins to successfully defend his IBF 140-pound title over George Kambosos. And I think it should be a unanimous decision. I wouldn't be surprised at a majority decision where one has it as a draw. But yeah, I think Hitchins is going to win this one pretty handily. The question is he going to be able to secure a meaningful, fun fight after this? Like, is he going to be able to get Teofimo Lopez in the ring with him? Since we know Teofimo Lopez appears to have no interest in fighting Devin Haney. Will it be Hitchins defending his IBF title and Lopez defending his WBO title? Or is Teofimo Lopez really going to 147 like he says he will, like he was supposed to in that Devin Haney fight, which I know was supposed to be like at a 145 catch weight? But there are so many quality fighters at 140. I would just hope that Matchroom, DAZN, and Richardson Hitchins, I hope that him and his people, I think Keith Conley is his handler and his manager, I hope that they're able to put a interesting matchup together for Richardson Hitchins. I don't know who that next title challenger would be. I mean, if it was a unification fight with Gary Antoine Russell, the WBA champ, or Alberto Puello, who's going to have his hands full again with Subriel Matias, he's a WBC champ, I mean, that would be great. But in the IBF right now, it looks like after George Kambosos, the #1 contender is Subriel Matias. Then you've got Liam Paro, Lindolfo Delgado, Dalton Smith. That's a fighter that I'm interested in. I don't think he's cracked like the ring top 10 in the division yet, but he is somebody that you need to keep your eye. No, he actually, Ring has him at number 9 in the division. I'm kind of high on Dalton Smith. I think that he's got a a relatively high ceiling. But yeah, there's a lot going on at 140. I know that, you know, Haney, Ryan Garcia, and seemingly Teofimo Lopez have moved up, so they might be off the table. Jack Catterall's still there. He had lost to Arnold Barboza, who then lost to Teofimo Lopez. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Richardson Hitchins versus George Kambosos Jr. Are you giving George Kambosos a real shot, or do you think that he will once again be dominated? Now, I don't think Hitchins is gonna stop Kambosos. Hitchins only has like 7 knockouts out of his 19 wins. Like the last time he got a stoppage was 5 fights ago against Yomar Alamo. So I don't think he's gonna stop Kambosos. But do you think Kambosos is gonna have like a real shot at winning another title? This time the IBF 140-pound title. Again, this is Kambosos' second time in the division. Does he have a real shot at beating Hitchins and taking that belt? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.